Man, this is like the full summer. Like so many people check out for summer. Not Anchor Church, y'all. We're checking in for summer. And we have the biggest summer calendar. I have to be honest and tell you, in my 30 plus years of ministry, my ministry career, if you will, this is, and I'm not gonna say busy, I'm gonna say full. And the reason why we wanted to make it a full summer is because so many of us travel. But we wanted you to know that even though you may not be here, there's still so many amazing things happening at Anchor, and I wanted to give you that full calendar ahead of time. So maybe you can make some plans accordingly based on the kind of stuff that we're doing. But the end of this month, I have a good friend of mine that's coming to speak. His name is Erwin McManus, and he'll be speaking the last Sunday of this month. And the last Sunday of every month, we're gonna have special guest speakers, which is pretty incredible. The last Sunday of every month, we're gonna have a guest. Now I take that back. In September for our 3-year anniversary, we have a special guest coming. But then we have the last Sunday in October, we have a great friend of mine coming to preach as well, and you all will be blown away. And typically, if you know me, I always wanna spill the beans way ahead of time. And everyone always like, don't do it, don't do it. And so I'm not gonna tell you who the guest speakers are for July and August, September, October. You'll just have to keep coming and find out. But Erwin is coming the end of this month, and then that Sunday night, he'll be preaching the first 2 Sunday morning services, and then that Sunday night, we're doing a worship night. And so the last Sunday of every month will be a big worship night, and you don't wanna miss that. So you might wanna double dip that day or triple dip or whatever you do. But you don't wanna miss it. It's gonna be a great night of worship. But typically, if you know me, if you've been to Anchor before, I normally preach in sermon series. And it's kind of a collection of talks. And then I do what I call one-hit wonders. It's just like what the Holy Spirit puts in my heart to say, preach about this. And since Erwin was preaching the last Sunday of this month, and I just finished a series called Speak Jesus, which, by the way, if you missed that, you can go back and watch it on our YouTube channel. I thought, I want to do 2 weeks of just one-hit wonders. Just stuff that as I pray about, God drops in my spirit, like, I think this is what we need to preach on. And so sometimes these topics, you might be like, oh man, yeah, okay, I didn't know I was dealing with that, but now that I talk about it, I am. But today, I feel like this is gonna hit all of us, all right? All of us in the room, all of us online. Just by a show of hands, anyone ever deal with stress? Anybody dealing with stress right now? Anybody completely overwhelmed right now? Like, you just feel like it just never stops. You know what I'm talking about? It just like, you can't catch a break. Anybody feel like it's like tomorrow is a new day. And then tomorrow happens, you're like, oh man, I didn't see that one coming. And it just adds on. Now, we all know what stress is, but I actually looked on the Webster's dictionary to find out the definition of stress. And the definition of stress is physical or mental tension. Anybody feel tense today? You walked in just like this. You know what I mean? Just frustrated, just angry. Now, physical or mental tension. Now you might go, well, what's the definition of tension? Glad you asked, I've got it right here. Tension is physically or mentally stretched tight. So what stress is you've been pulled so tight, you're living life so thin that if one more thing gets put on you, you about to snap. Does that about explain it? Now it kind of reminds me, in the last 3 houses that Teresa and I have been in our closets, we have the white iron closet hanging things that mount into the wall. Anybody know what I'm talking about? I think typically every house has these. And if you're like us, you always think that those shelving units can hold more weight than they actually can. Anybody know what I'm talking about? And so you think in your mind those hanging units are anchored into the wall with these massive, gigantic concrete. You're like, and so you just keep piling on and piling on. And has anyone ever had something tragic happen where you're in bed in the middle of the night and you hear a crash and you have no idea what it is and it's your whole closet on the floor? Anybody know what I'm talking about? And I don't know why it's happened to us in the last 3 houses, but it happens in the middle of the night. Like you wake up at 2 a.m. to a crash. You think the Lord's coming back. The Lord didn't come back. Your closet just died. And then you go in and you're like so angry because there's holes in your wall now this big where it like pulled out like the bathroom with it and it's on your floor and the clothes are hanging there and you're so mad and then you're like, oh. And then you do what I do. You try to put it back into the holes where it came out of. Teresa's like, let's make new anchor holes. No, it'll fit in here. But obviously, we didn't learn the hard way because we've done it 3 times. Because we just keep adding more clothes. Teresa just keeps buying more new clothes and just keeps... That is so not true, bro. So not true. I keep adding new clothes, and so clothes just keep just... And what's funny is we do the exact same thing. I'm pretty for sure we all do this. I've done it for the last 3 houses. Maybe this one will hold it. And this is the interesting thing about stress. We feel like I couldn't handle it last time, but I'm different now. I can hold it now. And so you and I take on more and more stress and more tension. And what happens is you weren't built for that. And so because you weren't built for that, you're stretched so thin, you're one weight short in life of a breaking point. And then you're laying in a heap on your floor going, what happened? Well, you just piled on too much. You just piled on too much. And why does it happen? Well, it happens because we live in 2022 and we are in a technology-driven culture. And technology creates urgency, and urgency creates stress. I mean, think about it. Like when I was a kid, y'all, there was no cell phones. We didn't have computers. We didn't have any of that stuff. We didn't have, back in the day, pagers or whatever. Like and some of you are like, how did you communicate? Smoke signals. We were old. We ride a horse to the next town, But we didn't have any of that. So here's what happened. When I was a kid, like all we had was one phone line at the house. And then we got really rich and had call waiting. And we're so excited we got call waiting. When people would try to call you, got a busy signal, you were so mad. And then when someone had call waiting, you're like, oh, hold on a second. Boop, boop. I'm getting another call. That's right, we're rich. Hello, I would get so excited with call waiting. But what I loved about those days back then is when you left work and went home, you left work and went home. Ain't nobody trying to call you because you're like, I don't know. I don't have a computer. I'm out of the office. I'll talk to you tomorrow. But something happened and we're always accessible. You go on vacation, you're accessible. You go to Disney, you're accessible. You go out of the country, you're accessible. We update our phone plan to be accessible. Why? Because we are in a progressive society and urgency has created stress. Because thinking about it, this is the stress we have on us now. If you try to call somebody, with cell phones, with iPhones, with Apple Watches, with everything else, people are always able to get in touch with 24/7. And so if they don't answer your call or don't respond to you, how many of you get ticked off? You look on social media, oh, I see how it is. You just on social media, but you can't pick up my call. And so then it adds more complexity and more stress to the friendship because you're going, I know you can see me while you ignore me, bro. What we did was, all that happened was in society, it just progressed us to another level. And so because we live in 2023, because we live in a technology-driven, progressive society, guess what? We have stress. So I ask you again, anybody stressed? Some of y'all stressed right now just by the sermon. You're like, oh my gosh. So tight. Somebody been trying to call me for the last 7 minutes. I know. Like some of us can't even think about what's happening right now and how to fix stress because we're so worried about the stress and the day tomorrow. But it's just the culture we live in. And the funny thing is, it doesn't matter who you are or where you are on your spiritual journey. Every single person deals with stress. As a matter of fact, it's even attacking like teens now. I just read an article this last week. 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old teens are having stress-related symptoms in their body that they didn't see over the last 30 years, except in adults. Ulcers, chronic headaches, chronic diarrhea. Now, that's even adding to the complexity of your busy life. Now you're a teenager and you have chronic diarrhea. And if you're a girl, at least you have a stall door, dudes have to just like have chronic diarrhea in the open. It's just like nonstop complexity and I'm thinking, this is the culture we live in, man. Some of you girls are like, I don't get that one. Ladies, the men's bathrooms have no stalls on their doors. It's horrible. I don't know, you guys have like beautiful, I don't know, better homes and gardens in your bathrooms. I don't know. It stresses me out talking about it. But it's the complexity of the culture we live in. I just read an article this past week. In that same article, it talked about, it was by Harvard University. The name of the article was, Thank God It's Monday. And what it said is, more and more parents today say they look more forward to Monday in their work week than Friday of their work week because the irregularities of the weekend with their kids and their sporting events and their extracurricular activities, because everything is so different, they can't wait to get back to work on Mondays where they have an actual regular schedule. Thank God it's Monday. So it used to be, I can't wait for the weekend. Now it's like, I can't wait till Monday. That's how stressed out we become as a culture. It is ridiculous how things have happened. And every single one of us deal with stress. And if you think about it, in this article, it talked about how teens deal with stress, where I remember when I was a kid, you just wanted to get good grades because you didn't want to get in trouble. Now you want to get good grades because you want to get into a good school. Because if you can't get into a good school, then you can't get a good job, and you want to get a good paycheck. And so it puts the complexities of stress on your life because you're fighting so hard to get good grades, which makes you not really have a social life because all you do is homework to get in the school you want. Or playing sports. When I was a kid, you just played sports not to get a scholarship. You played sports to get girls. I play football like because the girls liked it. You play football? I sure do, girl. I sure do. Like that. But now you're playing sports to get a scholarship, to get paid to go to college. So it adds complexity of stress on your life in sports and in grades and in extracurricular activities. But we weren't created to live life like that. We just weren't. And this is one of those, if I'm honest, it's a theological message, but it's really for you and I to understand the complexity of society, but trust in the favor of God. We got to. Because Paul says this in Philippians chapter 4, verse 6. Don't worry about anything. I'm going to stop right there. How many of y'all heard this passage before? And you hear it and you're like, easy for you to say, Paul. 2,000 years ago, bro, you didn't have cell phones. You didn't have internet. What'd you have, like one bathrobe and one pair of sandals? Like, come on, bro. How hard is this? But Paul writes this letter from a prison. Almost on house arrest. And he's saying, I have no idea if I'm going to get beat tomorrow. I have no idea if I'm going to get killed. I have no idea what's going to happen to me. But don't worry about anything. Instead, somebody say instead. Pray about everything. Tell God, look at this. Tell God what you need, and then it's a two-parter. We stop after the first one. Tell God what you need. Shaun, I've done it for weeks. No, tell God what you need and thank him for all he's done. You tell him what you need and then thank him for what he's done. Why do you thank God for what he's done? Because it reminds you who he's been and who he will be. All we want to do is go, God, I need this, I need this, I need this. And God, you ain't coming through. And God goes, actually, I did 2 weeks ago. I just need to remember that. And the remembrance of what I did 2 weeks ago will remind you what I can do 2 days from now. But we don't thank him for what he could do. So let's talk about stress, shall we? I'm going to get practical here at the end, but I want to diagnose stress a little bit. Can we talk about what stress does to your lives? I mean, we all know, but let's dissect it here a little bit. Stress causes selfishness. Now, when I'm selfish, I don't care. When I'm stressed, it makes me selfish. When I'm selfish, I don't care about anybody else. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Like when you're stressed out and other people tell you they're stressed out, you begin to have a comparison game with them about how more stressed out you are than they are. Because you think no one has a clue what I'm going through. I'm so stressed right now. Oh, you're stressed. I'm stressed. Oh, no, I'm stressed. Oh, no, I'm stressed. In the last week, I've had 4 hours of sleep, a thimble of water, and a cashew for lunch. That's all I've had. I mean, it's like, okay, you're so selfish. I remember when my kids were little back in the day, and I would work on my sermons from home. And always wait to the last minute so long ago. And because I waited to the last minute to write my sermon, it put stress on me. So it's a Thursday, I'm trying to crush out a sermon, and my kids are trying to get my attention because Teresa's at work and I'm not listening to them. And Austin could have been juggling knives, Alyssa could have been swimming in the fish tank, but I'm so focused on the selfishness of what I have to do, no one else matters. Anybody know what I'm talking about? It causes selfishness. The other thing it does is it causes constant frustration. Because you're always stressed, you're always on the verge of losing your salvation. You know what I mean? It's always like you're always on the verge of just like having some words come out and you don't know where they came from the pits of hell inside your stomach. You're just like, I don't know. It's like you're so frustrated and so stressed, it seems like you always have someone pull out in front of you in traffic. And they probably always do. You just don't notice it because you're stressed out and ticked. So then or you go to the grocery store, you're Winn-Dixie or your Publix or whatever, and you try to find the shortest line and you get in the shortest line. But even though it's the shortest line, it has the trainee. And so now you're trying to be Jesus in line, but you're so mad because you're like, oh, no, don't they understand? Teresa and I always have this joke when someone does that to us. We always go, they must be busier than us. You know, why? Because we get selfish and we get frustrated. And then because we're selfish and we're frustrated, stress makes us say unintentionally hurtful things. Anybody know what I'm talking about? You get so stressed out, you say something to somebody that you love, and it comes out and you're just like, I'm really sorry. This happened to me this last week. I was so stressed. I had 14 things on my mind, but because I didn't communicate it to Teresa, which would be much easier if I just told her I have a lot of things on my mind. I didn't tell her. I know many of you are probably better at that than I am, but I held it all in, and then we're getting ready to go to work in the morning, and his car was our house, and his wife's Marissa's car is our house, and my parents' car at home. We're moving all the cars, and so I moved the car, and I pulled out of the way, and so I didn't move the car completely out of the edge of the driveway, and so it was still in my backup view. And Teresa, very nicely, she goes like, hey, you could probably move the car up a little bit further. I'm like, you move the car. I'm like, oh, Shaun, that didn't go over well. And so for the next 20 minutes on the way to work, all I'm doing is apologizing to her how much of a jerk I am. I love you so much. You're so beautiful. Why? Because what happens is words are like toothpaste. They come out and it's hard to get them back in. But it happens when we're stressed out. We say, we are frustrated, we are selfish, we say unintentional, hurtful things, and stress gives us just a get-it-done mentality. You don't care how it's done, you just want to get it done when you're stressed, right? Like you have a building project at home, and because you have 14 other building projects, that building project doesn't get the time, and so you only do it 25% of the way, right? And this happens all the time. You know what? This happens in our friendships, our relationships. Because you're so stressed, the person doesn't get all of your time. They just get a portion of you. It happened. I remember when I was getting my master's degree, I was a pastor, I was a dad, I was a husband, I was doing all this stuff. And so I would wait to the last minute to do my homework on my master's degree. And so then I wouldn't do it with excellence. I would just execute it. You know what I'm talking about? And so then it's like I'm writing a paper that's like, 1,000 words. I'm like, God is Jesus. Jesus is God. He is my salvation. I love him so much. And, hey, like what? Like, it's truth, Shaun, but it's the worst paper ever. Are you kidding me? That's amazing. But I didn't give it any effort. You know why? Because I was stressed. It gives a get-it-done mentality. It causes pain in friendships. Stress causes pain, and because you can only give a portion of yourself to your friendships, it causes stress on the relationship. Because you go out with your friends and you're hanging with your friends and all you're doing is you're on your phone, you're checking emails, you're texting, you're working, you have no time for your significant other, you have no time for your friend, you have no time to actually sit and be with them one-on-one because you're not thinking about them, you're thinking about what you can accomplish in the moment to make you less stressed. And so because of that, you lose friendships along the way. Or you feel like in your marriage, you're distanced from your spouse. Why is that? It's because of the stress and the nature of what you have going on that you think they just don't understand. And at the end of the day, what stress does is it causes you distance from God. Because just personally speaking, when I get stressed out, the last thing in the world, if I'm just being honest, the last thing in the world I want to do is hand the reins over to God. I want to fix it myself. Because the more stressed I get, what I think is, well, God, I've given you a shot, and you haven't really taken care of it so far, so I'm going to go ahead and take the reins, God, and let's see how I do. What we try to do, not very good at all. And what I try to do is I try to, instead of letting God make the situation new in me, I try to fix the old and patch it up. Like when we moved into this building, this 30,000 square foot building, it has like 20 AC units, and AC units these days are cheap. So, And we had to get like a bunch of new AC units. But I kept going, we're still a new church. We'll save up the money and do that. Let's just try to patch the ones we already have. And you all have seen how that worked on a Sunday morning. We all were in here like wearing bathing suits a couple times because it was so hot. And we actually have new units now. But what happened was for weeks, guess what we did? The AC guys knew us by name because we're always calling them going, hey guys, guess what? The duct tape last week didn't work. Instead of us just fixing it and getting a new one, we kept trying to patch the old one. And this is why you and I get distance from God, is because we go through stressful situations in life and we just try to patch up the old and put the shelving unit back in the old anchors, as opposed to buying a new shelf and buying new anchors and anchoring yourself to something new, as opposed to anchoring yourself to something old that will break in 3 hours anyway. We do it every single time. What do we need? More God. At the end of the day, our stress is caused because you and I try to fix us instead of letting God fulfill us. Now, here's what you need to understand about stress. Stress will happen. Can I get a witness? Stress will happen. I told you, because we live in 2022, because we live in a progressive society, it will happen. Think about it. Because what happens is a society that progresses always has stress that progresses with it, and we're never going back to where we were. We're not going back to the old days of horse and buggy. We're not going back to the old days where we all just get rid of our cell phones and no computers and just like write on a notepad. It's not gonna happen. You know why? Because we've progressed so far and we've gotten used to a lifestyle with technology. And so we're not gonna go backwards, so it will actually happen. It will happen. Stress, though, can be avoided. Now, not all the time, because there's some stuff that happens to you that can't, sometimes stress from other things happens to you. It's your boss, it's your work, but let me tell you, most of the stress on us is self-induced. And you can avoid that. Most stress on you is self-induced by you. I remember years ago, I had a mentor, older guy, great pastor, amazing dude, sitting in my office one day, and I was stressed. I was tired, I was working, and I was having one of those conversations where I wanted him to know just how hard I was working, so maybe he would congratulate me or something. And I'm just like, I haven't had a day off in 2 months. I've been working so hard. I'm so stressed out. And I remember this pastor sat across the desk from me, and when I got finished, he said this, "Is that supposed to impress me?" I was like, no, but are you? No. I said, no. He says, well, because my Bible says one of the 10 commandments is to honor the Sabbath and keep it holy. So, Pastor, the fact that you haven't had a day off in 2 months is actually sin. I was like, who invited this guy to the office? But in our culture, what happens is because we try so hard to fill our lives with so many things to make us important, if I'm honest, what we've done is to add the importance of your life, take that out, and put on more significance with Christ. And we just feel like if we're not busy, then we're not accomplishing something, but it can be avoided. Well, how do I know that it can be avoided? Well, because I know that all of it, I heard this past week, I got to research, I don't know if it's true or not, but we were born with 2 fears. The fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. Those are the only 2 fears we were born with. Every other fear is learned. So if you can learn fear, you can unlearn fear. If you can learn stress, you can unlearn stress. You have to unlearn it. Like Paul says, I've learned it. You can't be afraid. You can't fear. You actually have to go, God, I'm giving you this. I'm going to handle it in a different, like we all handle things differently. If I was to take a boa constrictor right now and throw it in the crowd, some of you would respond like Maria and go, oh, dear Jesus, help us. You'd punch 13 people, run out the exit doors. On your way out, you go, I hate this church, I'm never coming back. Some of you would go, oh my gosh, a boa, I love these things. These are so incredible. Why? Because we respond to stress differently. Some of us react in a way that's confident. Some of us react in a way that is insecure. What does that mean? Something wrong with you? No, you've just learned over a period of time how to deal with it. And here's what happens. What Jesus says is you need to have peace. But for many of us, we're confused because we think peace is an external thing. And so what happens is when you're stressed, you try to add more things on the outside to give you peace on the inside, but you're just adding more stress because peace is internal, not external. So we think in culture, if I just go on more vacations, if I just do this, if I just do this, if I just do this, and what you've done is just add more things to this schedule instead of going, I need the peace of the world to live in my life and let me begin to understand how to deal with these things differently, not from the outside, but from the inside first. It can be avoided. And stress can be motivating. Now this is weird, go in here for a second. There are two kinds of stress. There's a good stress. Anyone know there's a good stress? There's a good stress. It's called eustress, E-U stress, E-U stress. And there's a bad stress called distress. That's the one that most of us know. But eustress is a short-term stress. It's a stress that focuses you, gives you energy. It gives you the act to perform a little bit better, right? So eustress would be like a first date. Oh gosh, first date, but I got to go. Right? It would be getting ready to preach, okay? It would be getting ready to ride on a roller coaster, getting a promotion at work. Do you understand what I'm saying? But what it does is the eustress is a motivator to you. The distress is when the eustress piles on and piles on and piles on, and it doesn't drive you, it debilitates you. There's two different kinds of stress. So it actually can be a motivator to you. It can. Now, 2 Corinthians 4 says this, we are pressed on every side by trouble, but we are not crushed. We're perplexed, but not driven to despair. We're hunted down, but never abandoned by God. How good is that today? We are knocked down, but never destroyed. 2 Corinthians 4:16. That is why we never give up. Though our bodies are dying, our spirits are being renewed every day. For our present troubles are small and won't last very long, yet they produce for us a glory that vastly outweighs them that will last forever. So we don't look at the troubles we can see now. Rather, we focus our gaze on the things that we cannot see. For the things that we see now will soon be gone, but the things we cannot see will last forever. Why do we have stress? Because you're focusing on the wrong things. We focus on the temporary bringing us joy instead of the eternal bringing us happiness. And the joy filled inside of you overflows and gives you peace in the midst of your stress. How does that happen? Glad you asked. It's all Jesus. Always has been, always will be. Now, can we get practical? So now you're like, great, I'm depressed after this message, Shaun. Thanks a lot. Can I give you some do's and don'ts? Let's get really, really practical. Is anybody dealing with stress today? Let's do some, wow, the keyboard. Let's talk about some do's and don'ts. Here we go, do's and don'ts. Do's and don'ts number 1. Don't worry about who you aren't. Do be thankful for who God made you to be. Look what Philippians 4:12. I know how to live on almost nothing or with anything. I have learned the secret of living in every situation, whether it's on a full stomach or with plenty. What does Paul say? I've learned how to make sure I don't compromise and compare. I know who I am in Christ, and my identity is found in him. Do you know why most of us have stress in our lives? Because you're trying to be someone else you weren't created to be. Most of us have stress because we compromise or compare. You compare to who you aren't, and then you compromise to become like them, and you weren't made to be like them. You're made to be you. Do you know the worst, most stressful thing for a pastor to do on a Sunday after he thinks he had a great day at church? Look at Instagram on churches that are bigger than his. Anchor's so great. Wow, we got a lot of work to do, dear Jesus. Worst thing you could do is compare and compromise. It adds more stress because then you think I've got to do more to achieve more, to become more. And God made you exactly who he wants you to be right now. Do you know, my son Austin and I were talking at the dinner table the other night because he's been preaching a lot here in young adults and things like that. And so we're at the dinner table and I'm gonna help him with his talk or whatever. And he told me, Dad, when I first started preaching, I thought I had to be you. Because that's all you ever see. He said, but then when I realized just to be me, I got more confidence. And I said, man, I can understand, because when I first got in ministry, there was a guy that I tried to preach like. And I was scared to death, nervous every time I preached. I put stress on myself because I thought if I don't act like him, then no one will like the message. But what I found was I had less stress and more confidence when I just was like, I'm just gonna be me. Flowered shirt, skinny jeans, no socks, like I'm just gonna be me. And if people are like, I hate it, well, you don't have to wear it. I'm just gonna be me. Austin is not me, and I'm so glad because God created him to be him. You need to be you and stop being stressed out when you're trying to be someone else and you're not, because you are you, so be the best version of you. You are God's original masterpiece. Don't let the devil steal that identity from you. Just be you. Gosh, I look at people online all the time and go, man, I wish I had their hair. It's never gonna happen, Shaun. Don't worry about tomorrow, but pray and believe that God's already there. How many things do you lay in bed at night and stress over happening tomorrow that haven't even happened yet? And if I'm honest, sometimes don't even happen at all. Anyone ever laid in bed and wondered about what if, and then the next day happens, you're like, dude, y'all, I told you, but I had a double umbilical hernia. I had it like surgery back in January, and I would get done preaching on a Sunday. I would go home, my stomach was killing me. I went to the doctor. Doctor said, oh, you got double hernia, blah, blah, blah. He goes, we'll do surgery. Surgery's 4 months away. But I did surgery, what, babe, like back in February or something like that. And so the doctor goes, when I go in for the pre-ops, the appointment, he goes, we're going to give you a local and then we'll cut your stomach. Whoa. A local. I ain't watching no surgery, dog. Like, you put me out. No, we'll do this a local. But you know how you try to be cool? Like, oh, okay, local, that'd be good, man, yeah. Got videotape it, yeah. And then I get home, I told Teresa, I'm like, I ain't going to surgery with this guy. Local? I worried about it for 4 months. I go in the day of the surgery. The anesthesiologist comes in and goes, okay, we're gonna go ahead and put you out. I said, oh dear God. Yes. I said, he told me he's a local. He goes, oh no. It's like this Twilight thing. I said, I don't know what Twilight means, but whatever it is, yes, go, let's go. I worried 4 months about something and then it didn't even happen. We're laughing, but we worry about it all. That we worry about stuff that's never happened. And God goes, why are you worrying about that stuff? Psalm 62, let all that I am wait quietly before the Lord, for my hope is in him. He alone is my rock and my salvation, my fortress where I will not be shaken. My victory and honor come from God alone. He's my refuge, a rock where no enemy can reach. Oh, my people, trust in him at all times. Pour out your heart to him, for God is our refuge. Interlude. I love the you know what interlude means? Oh, David writes this psalm and he goes, I got so much garbage in my life, God take it. Interlude. You know what some of y'all need to do today? Go home and just go, interlude. The problem is you and I have no interlude. Can I get really, really practical? Really, really practical? You can either deal with stress on your own or let God deal with it. And here's how you let God do it. Are you ready? Practical. I need you every single day this week, 7 days, every single day this week, when you wake up in the morning, pray for 3 minutes. Not 3 hours, not 30 minutes, 3 minutes. That's 21 minutes this week. And you pray for 3 minutes and you say, God, I'm dealing with this today. I don't know how I can handle it, but I know you can. Here you go, and be done with it. 21 minutes, that's it. Now, some of you are like, I tried it before, Pastor, nothing happened. Okay, number one, actually, did you believe he could actually do something about it? Lots of times I prayed and I didn't believe he could do it. I'm like, God, you can do this, but I'm gonna keep worrying about it. No, you pray and you give it to God. And I'll tell you, some of those prayers answered by God are rocket prayers and some are balloon prayers. Rocket prayers are, it's like right then. God, I need a parking place. There's one, thank you, God. Some of those balloon prayers, like, God's taking his time. It's not a matter of, is God working? Do you believe he's working? You got to trust in that. So 3 minutes every day, God, I trust. And then you pray and go, God, you got it. Interlude. And then the last thing is this. Don't worry about everyday life, but do trust God every day of your life. Luke 12:22, Jesus then turning his disciples said, this is why I tell you not to worry about everyday life, whether you have enough food or clothes. Don't worry about it. He says, for life is more than food and your body is more than clothing. Look at the ravens. These birds, they don't store up a bunch of food. God feeds them. And are you more valuable to him than any bird? Can all your worries add a single moment to your life? No, but it can distract. It can take away. And if worry can't accomplish a little thing like that, what's the use of worrying over big things? I don't know. So why do I worry? I don't know. Because I think I can handle it. And God goes, no, you can't. You're just adding stress to your stress. You weren't created to handle it. So let me fill your life with some peace and have confidence in me to be the only one that can do it, and just interlude and trust. Just trust. Come on, stand to your feet. Anyone ever done those trust falls at camp or leadership activity or whatever, when everyone like holds their hands out and you fall backwards? You know what I'm talking about? You ever gonna catch? You know what I'm talking about? We've done that before. And I remember Austin and I, we went to father-son camp like years ago, right? It's father-son, all these high school boys, and there might have been like, I don't know, 10 of us in this group. And so they stood us up on a platform like this, and then they had the dads and the sons, and then each person like fell back to learn trust, right? It was easy when we all like held on to these like little 14-year-old kids, you know? They weigh like 64 pounds. They're like, okay, catch me. And they fall backwards. You're like, oh, hey. And then the leader goes, okay, now he says to this one, he goes, now you get up there to this kid's dad. And this kid's dad gets up there, and he was not 62 pounds. And I'm looking around, and there's like, you know, Austin and me and like these freshman boys. I'm thinking, we're gonna catch him. Like, I want to, but we're not gonna catch him. Like, there's not trust built in this event. This is a failure waiting to happen. And so he gets up there, and the leader goes, I know what you guys are thinking. Your perspective is there's not enough power. But tell your perspective there is. And I remember that dude fell back. We're like, do it again, you know. Because your perspective is it can't happen. This is why you and I try to take on our own stress, because you can't trust fall into the arms of God, because you feel like your perspective is he can't handle what I got. But can I tell you today, your perspective should be he can handle all you got. Why? Because he is. You just got to trust. Just trust. I don't know what you got going on today, but let me tell you, it starts with trust. Trust. Maybe you're here today, you've been a Christian for a long time, you've given your life to Christ, you've been walking with him, but you gotta trust him today with your schedule, with your stress. Maybe you're here today, you've never said yes to Jesus, you gotta trust him with your heart. It's the trust in him that changes everything. It's the trust in him that gives you life. It's the trust in him that gives you forgiveness. It's the trust in him that gives you salvation. It's the trust in him that gives you heaven. And if you're here today and you've never said yes to Jesus, today's the day you can trust him for eternity. Come on, let's bow our heads. If you're here today, you've never said yes to Jesus, but you would say, I want to trust him with my life today. I want you to be bold. On the count of 3, if you say, yes, Jesus, I want you today. On the count of 3, I want you to raise your hand. You might go, oh, I don't know, Shaun, what are people going to think? They're going to think you're an absolute rock star is what they're going to think, because you're saying yes to Jesus. So on the count of 3, if you want to say yes to Jesus and give your life to him, I want you to raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, just raise your hand. Yeah, raise it up high so I can see it. Yeah, raise it up high so I can see it. Yeah, awesome, awesome. Yeah, awesome, awesome. Yes, awesome. Yeah, awesome, awesome, awesome. We're all gonna pray this prayer out loud together, but if you raised your hands, you just say it a little bit louder. Come on, everyone lift their hands together. Just say, dear Jesus, today, not tomorrow, right now, I say yes. I trust in you. I give you my life. I give you my heart. Come into my life. Forgive me of my sins. Make me brand new. And for the rest of my life, I will follow you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Come on, Anchor, let's celebrate today. All those that prayed that prayer and made that declaration. The Bible says you're brand new. Come on, lift your hands up together. Let's sing it together. He's exalted.